Hello, 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 and welcome to the hidden costs of hiring mistakes, uncovering the domino effect. Welcome, good to see you here. Please comment hashtag live if you're watching us live, or hashtag replay if you are watching the replay. My name is Una Doyle. I am the founder of Creative Flow, a business coach and strategist, and I am here with Helen Cairns, who is a top talent. What was the name we said?
Acquisition manager.
Acquisition specialist. That's it. Yes. So, Helen, would you like to say hello?
Yes, I would. Hi, I'm Helen. As Una said, I am a talent specialist. I work with businesses who either want to just cut the costs and get things more streamlined, or their recruitment's in a mess and they'd like me to come in and make it a happier place to be in. So yeah, I do everything from, creating the job descriptions right through to getting your new starter onboarded and increasing your retention. So yeah, that's what I do. I'm here to help you wherever I can.
Fantastic. And I think this is such an important topic, right? If you're here today, it's probably because you have experienced the pain of hiring people and them not working out. And then maybe you had to re-recruit for that role. And maybe that person didn't work out and you had to re-recruit for that role. I actually was speaking to somebody recently who was telling me about an organization that they know that, they must have had, I'm just thinking about the numbers they told me, and they basically had about 75% of their staff had all left in about a year.
Oh, there's a big red flag there. Big red flag.
Absolutely. I was like, that would be a great referral for me. Can you introduce me to them? Because I can help them. I can help them. And then you can come in and recruit for them once they've actually sorted things out. Because, obviously that is a key problem. For most businesses, things aren't that bad. Yet, the cost of these hiring mistakes is actually more than most people think about, isn't it, Helen?
It really is. I was looking through to see the latest figures on that, and you are looking first and foremost about 50% of their annual salary that you're going to lose, but there are other things to factor in, and it takes your cost massively high. So if it's a non-managerial position, you're looking at about £105,000. For managerial, you're looking at about £132,000, because it's not just the salary, it's the benefits you've been paying, it's the training, it's the morale of the business, of your team, it's the costs when it costs to actually recruit them. There's your agency fee if you use them, plus the advertising, time of managers to do that recruitment. But then there's also the productivity side. Everything goes in, but there was one that I came across today that I actually didn't think of, and it is the legal costs. You have to go through a process, and its legal fees are included. You've got that to add on to it as well.
And is that the legal fees of going to court, or is that the cost of hiring an employment solicitor?
It's normally, it can be quite pricey if you go to court, but if you're going through a process, you will consult a legal person. So you normally find yourself a solicitor. Now, they charge a fair amount of money. So depending on how much you have to get cleared with them, depending on how much you're going to be paying. But yeah, there will be a cost of a lawyer as well if you were going to do that. And if you're doing a settlement agreement, for example, you will be paying for the lawyer to put that together and review it. Plus, you will be paying for your employee to go and have that checked by a legal counsel themselves. So yeah, there are other additional costs that can come in on a bad hire.
Wait a minute, did you just say you were paying for the employee to go and check out an agreement with a lawyer on their behalf, as well as you would
normally pay them between £300 to £500 to go and consult a lawyer to make sure they're happy with the agreement you're putting together.
Oh.
So yeah, there's so many additional costs that you're not thinking about when you're bringing on, new employees.
I think there's another thing as well, which is, like, I know some business owners who've taken a bit of a chance and who have maybe not quite followed all the procedures, just really wanted to get somebody out of the business, and they've just taken that chance and said they have to go. And you know, and also in conversations with, you know, HR people and HR consultants, where they've said that, and but then there must be a little niggle in the back of their mind of, what if they come back? What if there's a court case? What if they sue me? Because, you know, for constructive dismissal or actually being dismissed on not the right grounds, etc. So I think if people don't follow all the steps and all the procedures, then they may get away with this, but there's the chance that they might not.
But even if they do get away with it, what's that person saying when they leave?
Oh, absolutely.
So you do, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, whenever I have a client that has an issue with a candidate, I always bring in my associates that I work with, because I always say to them, get HR advice, get legal advice. Don't take that chance, because that chance could come back and bite you. But not only that, you've got to look at, even if you are exiting someone, try and exit them on good terms, where possible, because at the end of the day, that niggle could be something where they're going away and talking about you. And people talk about bad news a lot. And you've now got social media. So there's a lot of things that they can put on social media as well.
Absolutely. In the situations I know about, really in these situations, it's not that the employer was out of order or had a bad culture or things. They just did not hire the right person, really. Or maybe they inherited them in the case of a merger or acquisition, and they just weren't a good fit. You know, so it's I think there's so much in terms of those costs. There's financial costs of, what was it you said, £102 for a non-managerial position? And 130 for a managerial.
132 for sort of like, you're looking at about the 42 to 50k up mark.
Yes. Yeah.
The thing is as well, what you were saying there, I've had clients where they've recruited the wrong person. That person also knows that the role wasn't sold to them. And they've had a mutual conversation and they've left, but you still have to re-recruit. But for me, that's a bad recruit, because when you've missold the role to a candidate, it's the way it goes. So there's so many ways to avoid that.
Yes. I heard somebody, I don't remember who it was, I heard someone on a podcast recently, and they were saying, because they're in the kind of company that lots of people want to work for, that they actually actively, in an interview, go, this is what it means to work here. And this is what our culture is like. This is what we expect of you. If you're not up for that, that's perfectly okay. But if you come on board, this is what it will be like. And she said that she over-egged it, so that when if they did come on board, they'd be like, oh, it wasn't as bad as she made out.
I think it's about being transparent, though, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, especially with startup organizations, the role that you go into is going to evolve, because it's a startup environment.
Yes.
So, you know, somebody in a corporate place their role is pretty much going to stay the same. But when they go into a startup, it's that constant evolving. And you would expect that, but it is transparency, isn't it? It's about, this is what your role looks like, but we are a startup, so it's going to change. How adaptable are you?
Absolutely. And for those of you watching live, do please say hi in the comments, so we know you're there, by the way. We can't see you otherwise. And we'd love to know what your questions are, and perhaps you have an experience that you'd like to share, perhaps anonymously. It might be wise as well, depending on whether it's your company or somebody else's. So we've got the financial cost, right? The financial cost. So you talked about the legal costs, you've talked about the recruitment costs of re-recruiting somebody. You've talked about the management time taken up in the recruiting and the re-recruiting. There is also the fact that there's the opportunity cost of what isn't being done by that person while that role is being re-recruited for as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, because it will be spread out to the rest of the team. So it will put the team under a lot of pressure, and the chances are mistakes can happen when people are being spread thin. But you're absolutely right. The production costs, it could be customers as well. You could be missing business opportunities with customers.
Absolutely. There's also the whole issue around, I mean, you talked about people talking on social media. I mean, now we have Glassdoor. So
Oh,
I know
love
people
it.
this year who've been looking for jobs, and every time they get a recruiter calling them or they get a call from a company saying, "Would you like to come and interview?" First thing they do, go on Glassdoor.
Yes, that's exactly what they do. The thing is, let's go back to the days when I was looking for a job, and we didn't have internet at that point. So if you were going to research a company, you would ask people, or you go and get their pamphlet or whatever. But now, it's everything's there at your fingertips,
Yeah.
and people will put in Google, reviews on such and such, and it can come up on all different platforms. So absolutely right. And Glassdoor, they can put lots of comments about you, and if you ignore them, it can go bad for you. So if you do get a bad comment on there, you need to respond to it. So whether that be putting your side across or whether it be apologizing and making sure it doesn't happen again.
Yes. Mm.
Because if you don't respond to it, it just shows you're ignoring it. So it still doesn't show a good light. So yeah, you have got the platforms, plus you've got word of mouth. It's a minefield now when it comes to that sort of thing.
I think it's interesting how I imagine that I mean, I don't know, with the larger organisations like corporates and that, would you say they
Mm-hmm.
tend to be quite aware of Glassdoor and keep an eye on it? Because I'm just wondering, do SMEs actually pay much attention? Do they even know about it? Do they even know what it is? I didn't know what it was until, somebody quite close to me was job hunting. And do you know what I mean? So I'm wondering, how well known is it if you're not a recruitment specialist?
If you're not in recruitment or HR, I suppose. No, actually, you're right, because there's people I've spoken to before that are going for jobs, and I'm going, look up their reviews on Glassdoor, and they'll go, what's that? So you're absolutely right. There are
Right.
people that don't know.
So if you're an SME business owner and you haven't heard of Glassdoor, go and check out your company. So it's
Yeah,
it's basically like TripAdvisor, but for employers.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd also go into Google and just put your company in
Mm.
Google,
Yes.
because there could be other areas and other places they're commenting.
True. Very true. So, and that employer brand is so important because if you're, I mean, particularly if you're in one of the, say, professions or tech areas that are finding it hard to recruit at the moment, that there aren't
Mm-hmm.
enough skilled people to go around, your employer brand is going to be a big factor in the number of candidates that you actually get in the first
Yep.
place, as well as what happens during that recruitment process and whether people say yes, whether they're hanging out for a better offer, all those kinds of things, right?
And the employer brand can be done so simply. There's so many easy fixes. One of them being, stop making it a game to find your career page, put it on the front, and once you get them there, you then have to capture their attention. And there's various things you can do with that. Show your company off, what your benefits are, show pictures of your socials, get people's testimonials. It really is. It's a it's an absolute game changer, really, because it brings you the candidates directly, but it also gives candidates something to read and something to get to know before they actually come in and think about considering you as a company to choose.
The other thing I would say is please, please, please do not have an amazing employer branding marketing materials in terms of your web page and any other things you might do, and then have that not match the
Oh,
experience once people get there.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, you're spot on there, because your brand should be about your values, and if you haven't got your values in the business, it will show.
Yes.
And then again, you're going to be re-recruiting that role several times over.
Exactly. And we don't want values that are really generic and don't mean anything. They need to actually mean anything. But these are kinds of things that we can get into in the workshop that we're actually going to be holding. We'll tell you more about that and pop some details in the
Mm.
comments as well. Um, I want to go back to us talking about the team disruption because I think that's the second key area really that we want to
Yeah.
focus on. And, you know, so who is doing the bad hires work once they're either gone or going out the door, or we're still there but not actually getting the work done?
Yeah.
What's the impact on team morale? And
Yeah.
I remember it was quite a while ago. I remember talking to someone who they ran a firm over. I used to live over in Leeds, so this is going back quite a while actually. But I remember them saying they had about maybe 12, 14 employees, so not a huge concern, but big enough. They had two teams, and they had this bad hire in one of the teams. And they said to me, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had fired them so long ago." Because literally, after they let them go, the next day, the whole atmosphere was different in that team that they were in. And interestingly enough, it actually also had an effect on the other team, even though they weren't directly, they hadn't been directly working with that person.
But it's the negativity.
Yes, exactly.
Negativity, it grows, it's like a root, isn't it? It just grows out. And when you've got that negativity, it feeds into everybody. I know I had a client where they had several people coming into a role and not working out. And it did have that effect on the team, because the team, they felt more stretched. They didn't, they didn't, the person came in, their negativity fed through to them. They felt negative.
Yeah.
And like you said, the morale and I don't want to get up in the morning and go back into work. But when you get rid of that person, it sounds horrible to say it that way, but when you remove that person,
but when you let them go to find a better place for themselves
that suits them, then it does make a difference. But that whole negativity can feed through, especially in, as we said, the smaller companies. In the bigger companies, they can absorb it more. But in a smaller company, when the fit isn't right, it's a much bigger hit.
It really is. And I remember talking to another person at a networking event, young lad. He was in a firm. I think there was only about maybe 6 or 8 of them, and there was 2 other people. So I think there was 2 business owners and 6 staff, and 2 of the 6 staff were not performing. And he'd only been in that job for 6 months, and he was feeling resentful. He was working really hard, performing very well, really keen to succeed. And he was really beginning to think, why am I working so hard when they're getting away with this?
Yes.
So if you've got somebody like that in your business or in your team, please, please, please do something about it. And it's not about going and firing people willy-nilly.
No,
we're
no,
not
no.
talking about that. What we are talking about is having conversations with them. And if it is a case where, they're not a good fit and then the performance is not improving, then following the correct process with that. And actually, really, if you're having the right kinds of conversations with your team members, these issues shouldn't drag on. I mean, that person over in Leeds, like, they said they really should have fired them like 2-3 years before. And I said to them, how much do you reckon it's cost you? And he said, well, actually, I reckon at least kind of somewhere between 50 and £100,000 from lost clients. Now that's not actually taking into account the lost productivity from people going, nyet, nyet, nyet. Did you hear what so-and-so said, or what they did, or what they didn't do? And all of those kinds of conversations that'll be happening around the water cooler or on the phones or before or after meetings. It's, all of those things can really happen. There's another cost in terms of team disruption as well, though, that I want to talk about, which is every time a new person comes into a team, it's almost like that team goes back to zero. So I'm sure you've heard about, the forming, storming, norming, and performing idea. And so when you bring one person into a team, it reverts back to forming and storming. And that can be a disruption in itself. So even when you do get that right person, there has to be an allowance for the fact that the team is disrupted. They all have to get to know each other. You can't go, oh, we have this great, really cohesive, high-performing team, and then you bring someone else into it and expect them to all perform at the same level.
But that comes down to a good onboarding.
Yeah.
Because to get that team to be that cohesive, a good onboarding can mitigate a lot of those issues that could come up. Because by keeping engaged with that person once you've recruited them, having them invite them to socials, people are getting to know them before they even sit in their seat. So there are ways. Yes, there is still an element where they have to form and they have to still grow, but at least you get rid of the teething bit to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to pop the link in here for the workshop that we are going to be doing, where we're going to dive into a lot more of this. There's no charge for this. It's all about how to scale up and rapidly recruit. So I've just popped that. Let me just check this is showing in the comments, hopefully. Because we want to dive into that, because there are so many things that you can do that don't take a lot of money, or money that don't take too much time, and yet that you massively will be able to reap the rewards of that. So we've talked about team morale, we've talked about the new teams coming in and what you can do about that, and then the other aspect of team disruption is job insecurity. Think about it. If you've got one or more roles where people, it's like a revolving door, people coming in and going and coming in and going, that makes people feel insecure in their own role. And they, particularly if you don't have regular one-to-ones and the right kind of business operating system in place where everybody's really super clear on their accountabilities, on their measures, on their performance, it can leave people feeling, oh, am I doing a good job? Am I making some mistakes? Am I going to get fired or be made to feel that I don't belong here? It just raises questions in people's minds. So maybe, when that headhunter or that recruiter calls, they might go, instead of going, no, I'm really happy where I am, they might go, tell me a bit more.
But when you say about the recruiter and the headhunter, what people don't think about is recruiters, headhunters talk. So when a recruiter is talking to a candidate and they see that they're really unhappy, and they talk about, because they will be very honest with the recruiter as to why they leave it. And when they hear that then makes that company a target. Because when the recruiters are looking for the talent, they know they're unhappy somewhere, they will go after all your talent.
Right.
So it does open up the doors to a recruiter to start fishing in your pond.
Beg your pardon, I didn't catch that last bit.
So it gives the recruiter the chance to go fishing in your pond.
Right. Yes.
They're just, if they get roles coming up, they will then just start headhunting your people.
Very interesting. See, we're getting an inside look here, folks. Great. Okay. So let's talk about, now we alluded to this a little bit, but I want to talk about the third key point, which is about customer disruption.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, like I was talking about with that business owner in Leeds, they definitely lost clients because of this person and their lack of performance and basically mistakes that they were making. Have you come across this before, Helen?
Yes, a lot. And I mean, funny enough, I'm actually coming across it recently with one of my friends who's getting married.
Oh.
I know their event organisers in the last 6 months have changed 3 times. So they're now getting worried about their wedding, and they're actually telling people to avoid that place.
Right.
They can't come out themselves that they lose money, but they're starting to talk to others that get married and say, don't go there. So it's not just how your one customer is affected. Those customers talk to other customers, and they will say, have you seen that so-and-so that's the 3rd person in the last 3 months that I've spoken to. They're all leaving. There must be a problem. And also, each time you get a new person, you have to get to know the customer. And then you have customers to keep explaining themselves.
Yes. That's really interesting, because I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think about that. they hopefully would be thinking about the impact on their customer, but not necessarily thinking about all the people that they're saying don't go work with this
Or
company.
whenever I've been to a client that's had that, they've always thought about the impact of the customer, and their first thing they do is they speak to the customer and they try and smooth it, which is fine. But when it's your third time you're smoothing it,
Yeah.
it gets tongues waggling.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because they could be amazing at providing the
Absolutely.
event service and just not very good at recruitment.
Yeah.
Or maybe they are good at recruitment, but there's something else going on in the business that is causing these people to leave.
It's funny actually, because there was like one of the researches I was doing before we came onto this was there is 2 out of 5 recruits that are bad when a company is recruiting.
Wow.
And that doesn't sound massive, but
That's nearly
it is.
half.
I know. But 2 out of 5 wrong.
So you're saying 2 out of 5 people that are employed into a new role don't work out?
Yeah.
We should have
So
left
if
it that.
the business is recruiting several roles, the chances are 2 out of 5 of those are not going to work out.
Gosh. I mean, if you've
And
only
it's about,
got,
like you said,
yeah,
it's about putting in the right process to avoid that.
yeah, absolutely. Oof. See, all of that, you know, it's not just the fact of the reputation, the direct reputation with your customers. You then got that indirect reputation with their circles. You've got the impact that then has on the cost of your marketing and the effectiveness of that, and how that affects yourself or your salespeople in converting prospects into clients. Is going to affect repeat business, you know, and that's the holy grail of any business, is repeat business and
Absolutely.
referrals, and they're not going to be happening where there's certainly a high turnover.
I've actually just thought of somewhere else as well, what you haven't said about is it will affect the customer side of things, but when your competitors start seeing it,
Yes.
that gives them an open door to your customers as well. So there's another customer impact there.
Absolutely. So your competitors could be poaching your staff and your customers.
Yeah.
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 This is really adding up to be very expensive. It's not just, and like, look, for some roles it may not be the 102 or the 132,
Absolutely.
because that's an average, right, across the board.
Yeah.
However, you know, even if you're doing your own recruitment and you don't have masses of recruitment, just thinking about the team disruption, the morale, you know, the fact that the job insecurity and people more likely to leave, and then the impact on customers. Like, these are the hidden things that a lot of business owners and leaders are not necessarily thinking about. And you really do want to be thinking about those things, because they're going to be affecting your profits, they're going to be affecting your stress levels, they're going to be affecting your team and the longevity and sustainability of your company, basically.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a much, I think when I'm speaking to customers, they're frustrated about the fact they can't hire the right people. But when you actually do start speaking about the other impacts, they aren't thinking about that. The clients that I speak to don't necessarily realize that. They are just looking at their own frustration and, you know, how it can be fixed. But when you talk about the wider part about it, it does open their eyes.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, when I sit with them and I put together the right process that works for them. And that's what will make the difference.
Exactly. You help to get the right people in. I help you to keep the right people.
Exactly.
And that's part of what we're going to be talking about on this workshop. I'm just going to take a couple moments and just share this with you. There's no charge for this workshop, by the way, but it is a workshop. It's not like some fluff-filled pitch fest. This is an actual workshop with a limited number of people where we're all going to be together, interacting with each other. It's called How to Scale Up and Rapidly Recruit Top Talent Without Breaking the Bank, Sucking Up All Your Time, or Derailing the Company. Because this is what can happen when, you know, people are experiencing the things that we have been talking about and being affected by these direct and indirect costs, that many of which we've seen actually are hidden or certainly not thought about. So, you know, if you've hired people who looked great on paper, yet you actually can't trust them to deliver, if you're spending too much time managing people, even if you're managing to bring on the right people, yet your time is being spent managing them rather than focusing on the things that are going to actually help you to drive the company forward and to be able to scale up, then this is for you. Maybe you're also wondering, well, how do you validate the skills of your candidates? Helen's going to be sharing that on this. And doing it in a way where you're not sending them running for the hills either, because, you know, some employers are expecting so much of candidates that it just puts them off. Like, you know, people will not stand for it these days. And the other thing is that if you're in a high growth company, it's about keeping the culture that you want, that actually allowed you to get to where you are today, without destroying that as part of your high growth. So I think classic. One of my clients had somebody say to them, "Oh, it's not like it used to be. We've lost the family feel." Now, in this particular instance, they said, it's not that we've lost the family feel, because we haven't. And I can tell they're still a very caring organization. It's that person isn't getting away with what they used to do, because there's more structure in the organization. You know, you've got to have, as an organization grows, then it has to grow its systems and its structures, you know, all its business operating system, as I would call it. You know, that has to grow with them, and you want what I call the Goldilocks amount of structure. Not too much, but not too little. It's got to be.
And I agree with you there. I remember a client that I worked with, and they were around about 20 when I came on board. And it really was that family friendly, they all knew each other, and they were scaling quickly. And it really did change the culture. Not in a bad way necessarily, but it wasn't as connected and as family orientated as it was before. But as you say, that happens when they grow. And it's managing that as well.
Exactly, because the danger is when you've got the business owner or owners interacting with everybody on a daily, weekly basis, because you're all there, even if you're remote, but you're all interacting all the time. As you grow, you can't have that anymore. You know, that just doesn't work. So how do you keep the culture alive in those situations? Well, we're going to be showing you how to do that on this workshop. So the link to book for the workshop is in the comments. So do please go and have a look on there and get yourself booked. We have a limited number of seats, and we look forward to hearing from you then about your experiences and how we can help you. So if you've joined us just recently, we've been talking about the pain points of hiring mistakes and the costs that those happen, and they really just are summed up around the costs of re-recruiting, the team disruption, and the customer disruption. If you've missed all that, go back. We're just about to wrap up. You can watch from the beginning and catch up on this, and we'd love to know your thoughts. So do please let us know in the comments, what are your views? What do you resonate with most? Which is the mistake that you've been, actually, I hadn't even thought about that, but yes, that's a big issue. Or maybe you were aware of it, but weren't sure what to do about it. Well, we'll be able to help you in the workshop. Helen, anything else in our wrapping up?
No, I think what you said is correct. You know, you're right, there is pain points. It doesn't have to be painful.
No.
You know, and that's how we can show them on the workshop how to make it less painful and actually make it fun.
Yes, absolutely. We both like
both parties.
More fun. Yes, indeed. And if you have any particular questions that we didn't address here today, pop them in the comments below as well. Get yourself booked on the workshop, and we will make sure to address that then or separately as well. Okay, have a fantastic rest of your day. We will see you again soon. It's bye from me.
And it's bye from me.
Okay.